Welcome to today's Conversations on Leadership, powered by Life University. I'm Dr. Gilles LaMarche, your host. And you know, as I do every single week, I pick a quote on leadership that I believe exemplifies our guest. This week is no different. It's a short one, but it's a meaningful one, and you'll understand it very clearly once we meet our guest. Self-control of one's mind is a gift within itself. Self-control of one's mind is a gift within itself. And here's the introduction for Dr. Michael Karlin. He's an assistant professor of psychology here at Life University in the Positive Human Development and Social Change Department. And he's the associate director of the Life University Center for Compassion, Integrity, and Secular Ethics. He is the co-author of Compassion Integrity Training, which I've had the honor to take, a secular ethics approach to cultivating personal, social, and environmental flourishing. Dr. Karlin received his PhD in religious studies and a graduate certificate in Jewish studies from Emory University in 2014. He has been a fellow of the Tam Institute of Jewish Studies, Mind and Life Institute, and the Wexner Heritage Institute. Dr. Karlin, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Man, I love your backdrop. I mean, your backdrop speaks about who you are.
Kind of says it all, doesn't it?
Integrity. Yes, it's actually fantastic.
Yeah. Life University, the center, it's got it
all
all.
There. And I'm very grateful that I know how busy you are. So I'm very grateful you've taken the time to be with us. So let's get right to task. You know, the whole goal of today's Conversations on Leadership is to help developing leaders, emerging leaders, young leaders, older leaders, senior leaders to enhance their skills and become better leaders, understand the qualities of servant leadership, see how they could maybe do better, etc. So my first question for you, which I know you'll answer really, really well, because this I know is the life that you live, but how do you explore and at the same time take into consideration how the work that you do helps lift up the less privileged in our society and to ensure that they are not further harmed? How do you do that?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything about the quote that you shared, because
you can say whatever you want. This is a
yeah. So that quote, if I remember the gist of it, basically it was short and sweet, which is just the power of controlling our mind and what that can do for everything else in our life. It's first of all, it's much easier said than done, but it's something that is, I think, very, very profound, because everything, it's John Kabat-Zinn has said that having control of one's mind, being able to place our attention where we want to place it, when we want to place it there, is complete liberation. And it's true, if we just think about it, it's like when I do something that I'm not proud of, part of the reason I've done that is because my attention was focused on something else. It wasn't focused on doing the right thing. It wasn't focused on the compassionate response, or it wasn't focused on integrity. It was focused on maybe something like greed or self-interest or something along those lines. So if I have the power to place my attention where I want to place it, when I want to place it there, then I have total control of everything that's going on in my life. So anyway, I just wanted to start by just touching on that quote. I thought, I think it's very apropos of the work that I do, although I'm still a long way from getting to that level of control.
And it's very important for all leaders to recognize that for themselves, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that is, I think, so important in being a leader, is we oftentimes will talk about how we go and exercise our physical body. We go to the gym, we go out running, we do things because we know that it's going to make our bodies healthy. And if our body's healthy, that will help our minds be healthy, and it'll help us perform better in the work that we do. But it can also work the other way. We don't need to just train our body to be able to have a healthier mind. We can train our mind to have a healthier mind and do the right thing. And really taking time out to do contemplative practice, whether it's meditation, mindfulness, other kinds of practices, to really train that part of our mind that we know through neuroscience now can be trained to be able to hone that attention, to be able to increase our ability to hold that attention where we want to hold it, can have dramatic impact on the work that we do in our leadership and the decisions we make. But I can come back and answer your question, though.
Yes.
And so the answer to your question is really everything that we do within compassionate integrity training is really geared towards helping us recognize all people to recognize what we call common humanity and interdependence, to recognize that all human beings fundamentally are seeking greater well-being and are trying to reduce the amount of suffering that they experience. And by understanding that fundamental fact, and by understanding how the work that I do, the kinds of activities I engage in, the decisions that I make, don't just impact my life, but they impact the entire system. And so, what we're trying to do through parts of compassionate integrity training is to raise up that awareness of the entire system of common humanity and recognize that the decisions I make impact everybody and that everybody equally has a right towards greater well being and less suffering. And so, embedded in that is that notion that there are people out there who are less fortunate than us. There are people out there who, through the system, don't have the same advantages that I might have, don't have the same access to certain privileges that I might have. And so, therefore, we have to be aware of that in the decisions that we make, in the way we do it. The one other thing, and I just have to call it out because it's such a, to me, one of the hallmarks of Life University and why I'm so proud to be part of Life University is this idea of lasting purpose. And so everything that we do within CIT is to further the idea of lasting purpose, which, as you know, is to do, to give, to love, to serve out of a sense of abundance, right? And so we that's even the way we price the way we do things. So when we offer the course to people to ensure that everybody has access to it, we price it on the basis of lasting purpose, which essentially is you contribute to the program what you feel you have the means to contribute. And if you can't contribute what we ask, then feel free to contribute less as because we want you to have access to it. And if you can contribute more, then by all means do that. And then that way we elevate everybody through that.
And the work that you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. Like I said in the intro, I had the opportunity to be one of the guinea pigs, I guess, for CIT
Exactly.
training, but it was already fantastic. And I know you've improved it. You certainly have improved it since. You came to this work a little bit later in life as a second or maybe a third career. I know at least as a second career, having graduated with your PhD back in 2014, I believe.
Yep.
Um, who are some of the people that inspired you along the way, whether it was your previous business or what you chose to do and what you're currently doing now? Can you share with us a particular person or how that person mentored you, how you were drawn to create the change and do what you're doing today and serve from this level?
Yeah, so I mean, those influences clearly change over time, and the influences that I had as a business person are going to be different than some of my chief inspirations now. So I can touch on a few of those. I mean, back in the day when I was in the business world starting out, we created the first bank on the internet, and really a huge inspiration to me at that time and a huge mentor to me at the time was my partner, who was the CEO of the company, a guy named Chip Mahan, and he was is a very dynamic, very intelligent businessman, leader. And one of the things that I learned from him was to have belief in yourself, faith in yourself, and have confidence to go out there and risk everything basically in order to fulfill your dreams. Chip was one of these guys who would, when we had this vision, and there were several companies we started together, but when we first had the vision of this was in the early 90s when no one really knew what the internet was, and Chip had just barely heard of it because of a friend of his, or his brother-in-law actually, who had mentioned it to him. And he dared to dream big, and together we dared to dream big, me following in his footsteps. I was all of about 24 years old, and I was able to see that if you really believe in something and you're willing to risk everything to achieve it, it's possible. It's really possible. So he was a huge influence on me in my early career. And if I had to pick someone right now that I think is a huge inspiration to me, would be His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because I think the Dalai Lama has, one of the things that I think is so important in what he teaches is the importance of motivation as opposed to necessarily just the importance of outcome. And I think as a leader, this is really, really critical because it's really easy for us to say, oh, well, it doesn't matter what the motivation is. It doesn't matter what's inspiring you to do what you're doing, as long as you do the right thing. That's really what matters. But the problem is that if you're just doing the right thing based on some external reward system or some external feedback system, once that external reality changes, you may stop doing the right thing. You may start doing other things. But if you're motivated by the right reason, if, for example, you're motivated with compassion, then you will continue to do the work that's necessary to make the world a better place, to make the organization a better place, to make the work environment a better place, because that is your true motivation as opposed to just the outcome. And I'll give one brief example that to me has always really stuck with me. And I've done a lot of work in my life on fundraising and raised millions of dollars for different organizations. And oftentimes, those requests for funds come with requests for naming opportunities, buildings with their names on it, people, things of that nature. And there's always been a kind of a wrestling with that idea of, well, a lot of people say, well, it doesn't matter if we have to give up something like that because really what matters is we just got to get the dollars. We have to get the dollars. And at the end of the day, it comes back to the idea that motivation does matter. Because what if you had to go back to that donor and say, "Well, the naming opportunity is no longer here," and they say, "Well, forget about it. I'm not. I don't believe in the mission. I don't believe in the motivation of what I'm doing. I just believe in that external accolade." Not to say there's anything wrong with getting some accolades, and there's a lot of benefits that can come from that for everybody. But if that's the driving motivation, if ego is my driving motivation, then as soon as that external reward, that flattery goes away, then I'm not going to help this organization anymore. Whereas if I'm motivated by compassion, it doesn't matter. That would be a nice benefit, but to get my name on something, but that's not what drives me. So I think motivation is key, and the Dalai Lama has really driven that home for me as I've read his work and then gone on to teach different aspects of his work.
Boy, a lot of nuggets already in just the first few minutes. Um, it's pretty obvious that you're an individual who is continuously working on himself. Can you share what that looks like? How does Michael work on Michael? And translate that by giving, I guess, some tips or some advice to leaders listening in on how they could be working on themselves to make themselves even better leaders than what they currently are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I do it in two different ways. One is I teach. So as they say, if you need to learn something, go teach it. And so one of the reasons, and I tell people this all the time, the reason I developed CIT and the reason I continue to teach CIT is because I use it every day and I need to be reminded of it. So literally just the practice of giving these skills over to other people encourages me to continue my own personal practice, and it helps me discover new ways of understanding. As you know, the skills are calming body and mind, ethical mindfulness, emotional awareness, self-compassion, interdependence and common humanity. Impartiality and common humanity, forgiveness and gratitude, empathic concern, compassion, and then engaging in systems, which is the final component of it. And each one of those, while we're teaching it, while we're sharing it with another person, that in and of itself is a practice because as you teach, you have to go in to that teaching relationship knowing that you have the possibility of being transformed. So very literally, I teach others. And so what I encourage people to do is as they're learning these skills, that they also teach these skills to other people, even if it's in an informal setting. So that's in kind of a more outgoing kind of way of processing these skills. Then there's the inward process, which is trying to set up a daily practice. And that is a time when you can choose what kind of practice is going to be best for you, whether it's a meditation practice, whether it's a journaling practice. There's also contemplative journaling, which is a more structured kind of practice. But the idea is to carve out time every day where you can go in and you can actually practice these skills yourself, whatever those skills are that you're trying to cultivate to be, as I said, it really starts with that, where what I ended the last question on, which is my motivation. So I want to cultivate my motivation. If the motivation I'm trying to cultivate is compassion, is integrity, is more focused attention, like we talked about at the very beginning, then I have to actually practice those skills, because it's just like any other skill. You can't expect to get better at it if you don't practice it.
Or the
So
content, right? You actually have to take action.
absolutely, absolutely. So you have to go back and you have to actually practice it. And so setting aside time to do practices that focus on those skills that you're trying to do, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's compassion, creating more, generating more empathy or forgiveness, these are all skills. I'll say one other thing about that, which is in CIT, we have this concept of what we call thinking traps, that our mind has evolved over thousands of years to see the world in a way that ensures that we have the best chance to survive. That doesn't necessarily mean it's trying to make us the happiest, or to be able to be, share our bounty with others, and to have common humanity. It's purely for me to be able to adapt to a situation and survive. But we live in a very different world today than when our bodies and minds did most of its evolving. And so we tend to fall into thinking traps. And what the practices can do, and the reason we need to set aside time to actually practice it, is to work our way out of those thinking traps on a much more embodied way, and a much more instinctual way. And I'll give you just one brief example. All human beings have what we call a negativity bias. We tend to see a situation, and if you can think about it in evolutionary terms, if I had walked into a forest that I had never seen before, if I walk into that forest and the first thing I do is say, wow, look at those beautiful flowers and those pretty vines, and I look at all of the wonderful things in front of me, and I miss the snake that's slithering through the ground and is about to bite me, I'd be dead meat, right? I wouldn't be able to pass my genes on to the next generation. So when I walk into an unusual or a new environment, the first thing I'm going to do is look for the threat. I'm going to look for the negative thing, even if that is far outweighed by all those positive things. So yes, if I'm going into a jungle in a dangerous situation, that makes a lot of sense. But if I'm, walking with my dog down the street, do I want to be looking at all the negative things, or do I want to look at all the beautiful things? If I am interacting with my spouse or my friends or my community, do I want to focus in on the negative, or do I want to focus in on the 99% of the things that they're doing for me that are benefiting me? So that's a practice. That's a recognition that I'm distorting reality in my daily life. It's not benefiting me. It's not benefiting others. So in order to switch the way I see the reality that I live in, I have to practice. So there are practices we can engage in that I try to do on a regular basis, for example, that will help me increase gratitude in that case, right? So those are the kinds of things that I try to do, both teach and practice myself, and that combination tends to work for me when I can do it on a regular basis.
I have a similar practice that I do on a regular basis because I remind myself of this every morning is look for the good. And when you see the good, say it. And so
Yes.
the first words that I consciously input into my brain in the morning is I will greet this day with love in my heart. Every person, every situation, every circumstance, because I choose to make my life sacred. And when I come from that space, it positions me in a completely different um, space to interact with people. And you mentioned
100%.
gratitude. You know, I
And
carry a little heart shape in my pocket all the time. I just took it out of my pocket now to remind myself to be grateful. So I
well, I
love
got to say,
that.
Gilles, I got to say, when I said everybody has a negativity bias, the first thing that popped in my head was, well, I think Gilles might challenge me on that, because I know he's done the practices, right? That's the thing, is that if you do the practices, if you make it part, it's, I should say, we naturally have these thinking traps, but we can also work our way out of them through practice. And so those kinds of practices you just talked about, some of the ones I talked about, are ways of doing it.
That's beautiful. Great.
And from a leadership perspective, to tie this back to this idea of leadership, from a leadership perspective, it can transform our relationship with our coworkers, with our bosses, with the people who work with us on our team, with our customers. That kind of gratitude, it doesn't mean don't focus at all on that one thing that has to change, or that one thing that somebody needs to improve on, or how you can make the relationship better, but it sets it into a context that's more real and it's more grateful. And then that person has an opportunity to listen and to really appreciate what you're saying, as opposed to only seeing the negative and only harping on the negative and only trying to fix what you see as broken. So it can be a transformative practice for business.
It's amazing when you're having fun how time flies, but we're getting close to the closing of our session together. So I'd ask you to, what's a few resources you'd recommend to someone looking to gain insight into getting better control of self, becoming a better leader, and do speak, if you would, on how people can access CIT.
Yeah, excellent. So first of all, thank you. And I was going to ask if it was time for a shameless plug, because the answer to the questions are the same, which is, I think that what I use at least is compassionate integrity training. And so if you go to www.compassionateintegrity.org, then you will go to that will take you to the Compassionate Integrity website. On there, you can look at upcoming trainings. We do trainings online and on the ground. But we also have, and this gets back to an earlier question you asked, Gilles, which is, if you go to the course materials, we offer all the course materials, the manual, the audios, the videos, everything that's incorporated into the course, you can download for free. And it's there in Spanish, in German, and in English, and more languages are on the way. And you can start on your own. We think it's more effective to do it as part of a course, but you will be able to go to the website and download audio practices, contemplative journaling practices, the manual, the whole thing. And that would be a way to cultivate those skills of more self-restraint, more emotional awareness, more ability to cultivate compassion, all of the skills that we've talked about today.
Wow, what a great resource to offer our listeners. Thanks so much for doing that, Dr. Carlin. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Dr. Michael Carlin. Compassion integrity training is the way to go for everyone, but certainly a way for you to become a better leader, one that accomplishes more and brings more good to the world. So thanks, Michael, for joining us today. It's a pleasure
Thank
having
you,
you.
Gilles. I really appreciate it.